Hello, hello, everyone. Let me get my face on here. Happy Monday. I hope everyone's doing well. This week, we're going to be talking about dealing with a dog who behaves aggressively toward a family member. So if you remember last week, we talked about whether or not you should punish your dog for barking or growling. And if you remember, we'll review it just a little bit today, but the answer was no. That's not the best way to deal with it. So today I was going to walk you through a real life example of a dog who is behaving aggressively at home, which can really complicate things because unlike a dog who's fearful or aggressive towards strangers, when your dog is aggressive towards someone in your household, it's a lot harder to control the interactions and the exposure of the dog to their triggers. So this is an actual work in progress in our house with a foster dog. All right, so let's get started on this kind of case study of a dog who is behaving aggressively in the home. Okay, so what to do when your dog hates your husband, or what to do when you have a dog in your home who is not behaving in a friendly manner toward a family member. And if you have this going on, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. It's surprisingly common, especially if you have a newly adopted dog or a foster dog. This is a small part of the story of Pancake, who is our foster dog. And I'll be sharing more about him in the future. But he makes a nice case study for this kind of aggression toward a household member. Okay, so as a reminder, the problem we are addressing is the dog growls or barks at family members. And last week we talked about should you say no? If your dog barks or growls at somebody or another dog, should you say no? And we talked about how dogs don't speak English, so that if it is working, if you say no and it decreases your dog's behavior that you're trying to decrease, it's probably not the word, right? They don't have the vocabulary that we do. It's something else. And ultimately, we settled on the real question, which is, should I punish aggression? Because we can't just use words to communicate with our dogs the way we communicate with each other. If you say no to your dog, it doesn't inherently have meaning. So what we're really asking when we say, should I say no to my dog when they are barking or growling, is, should I punish my dog when they're barking or growling? And if you remember from last week, we walked through these 3 areas of opportunity for intervention that we have anytime we're looking at a problem behavior, and decided that punishing aggressive behavior could result in worsened behavior in the future because the motivation to, say, get a scary thing to go away would potentially increase. So we are going to take Pancake's situation, working at home with him and my husband, and plug it into this framework. Okay, so growling at husband. This is our problem behavior. And as with all the cases that we've been doing with this framework, we're going to look at the consequence. What consequence do we think Pancake is getting by growling or barking at my husband? And I mentioned this last week that the most likely and most consistent sort of environmental change that follows Pancake barking or growling at my husband is that he moves away. And I did actually manage, I kind of contrived it, but I did manage to get some video of this. So look at Pancake's behavior and what is happening, what is he making happen with his barking, at least from his point of view. Okay, come on.
These are your packages.
Hey. Okay. So normally I wouldn't let this go on like this, but this is for your benefit. I decided to catch a little more video. So he barked, he lunged, he growled, husband went away temporarily anyway. Okay, so we're working on the premise that the function, what Pancake gets out of this behavior, the reason he's doing it is to make big scary husband move away. And again, remember, it doesn't matter if that wasn't really what made my husband go away. It just matters that him leaving followed Pancake's barking. So we've got our consequence. Now, let's plug in some more of these variables. Our consequence or function for the growling at husband is to make husband go away. Why is Pancake motivated to make my husband go away? Any guesses? If my husband going away is reinforcing to Pancake, that means my husband's presence is aversive to Pancake. So a more colloquial way of saying that is that he's afraid of my husband. Afraid of my husband, wants him to go away. So the motivation to get this consequence is because he's scared of my husband. And then this last piece, the opportunity to do this behavior, to produce this consequence, we just saw one of them. And granted, it was kind of a setup. I wouldn't normally have him loose in the living room when my husband's coming in from the garage. But the opportunity for this problem behavior to happen and be reinforced is generally when my husband's moving around and approaches. Those are our three pieces here of this growling at husband behavior problem. And now we are going to look at where we can intervene to get rid of it, or at least decrease it. Okay, what are our options? So I took changing the consequence of his growling or barking off the table. And the reason for this is, we talked about it a little bit last week, is that so we only have so many options. Say when he barks or growls, I say, hey, I don't want you to reward that, just stay there. I tell my husband, don't go away. I don't want it to be rewarded. What might Pancake do? There's a good chance he'll try harder to make him go away, which might include escalated aggression, which I do not want. While I don't love barking and growling, I do like it better than biting. So there's not a great way to change the consequences of barking and growling in a way that's productive for us. So I take that off the table and say, okay, we've got motivation and opportunity to work with then. So let's start with opportunity. And the reason for starting with opportunity is because it's often something that you can do right away. If you've got a dog who is aggressing towards someone in the house, you can usually change the opportunity for that behavior to be reinforced like same day, whereas the motivation piece might take a little more time. And if you remove the opportunity for this behavior to be expressed, or at least reduce it, it's going to be reinforced less often, which means, hopefully it'll be easier for you to reduce that behavior ultimately. Okay, so when you're thinking about how to address the opportunity for a dog to aggress to a household member, I like to start with I usually do this on paper or on a spreadsheet and say, okay, well, when is this happening? And not just generally like, oh, it happens when my husband approaches. That's not really specific enough. So if you are dealing with this in your house, I would recommend doing something like what I'm going to show you here. So I say, okay, when exactly? What is my husband doing and where is Pancake when these barking incidents happen? And so these are our real life examples. One situation in which we were having a lot of barking and growling was if my husband was moving around in the kitchen and Pancake was either in his kitchen pen, so pretty close to where he was, or in the family room, which has kind of a straight shot line of sight to the kitchen. So these were two situations that we'd have the problem behavior. Another sort of big problem scenario was when in the evening, if my husband was sitting on the couch and stands up and moves around, and Pancake's also in the living room with us. So these are what I identified as the biggest opportunities for Pancake's aggressive behavior to, be expressed and be reinforced. Okay, so the reason we did that little exercise, and I really recommend you do this if you're struggling with something like this at home, is to look at where are our opportunities to reduce the dog's opportunity to aggress. So we have some more specific details to work with now rather than, oh, it's just when my husband moves or approaches the dog. Okay, so here's our little opportunity table. What do you think we can alter here in order to change the dog's behavior? If you were going to change something in this table, what would it be? So do you think it would be more likely for me to change what my husband is doing or where the dog is? This may be obvious or not to many of you. For me, from my point of view, it is definitely easier to change where the dog is than to try to change my husband's behavior. So I am going to focus on this side of the table. Where is Pancake when my husband is doing this stuff on the left? All right, so first thing we're going to look at is this first scenario. Husband's moving around in the kitchen cooking. Pancake is in his kitchen pen. And I have some pictures of our somewhat messy house here to show you exactly what I'm talking about. On the left is a picture of Pancake in his pen in the kitchen. And this is where we set up his living area when he first came up here. He's very fearful. He was not house trained at all when he moved up to this house. And because we anticipated that he would be doing really living most of his time in this pen, at least for a while, we wanted to pick the biggest area we had available for him. So that's why we had it in the kitchen. But of course, like in most households, the kitchen is a high traffic area, which is problematic for a fearful dog. We did see if it was enough to block visual. You can see kind of in the back of that photo, there's some sheets draped over the X pen, but that wasn't really enough to decrease his barking and growling when my husband was in the kitchen. So we moved his pen. We made a smaller pen, which is in the right-hand photo there, in kind of a corner in the living room, and there's no reason for anyone to have to walk past that. And now he's not like living in there full time, but at problem times, instead of being in this kitchen pen, one other option is for him to be out of the line of traffic or the flow of traffic over here in the corner. Okay, so we've taken one opportunity to have aggressive behavior reinforced, kitchen pen, husband moving around kitchen, and replaced it with living room pen. So one scenario has been kind of fixed. How about the next ones? Family room. Okay, so back here, sorry. This next one is if husband is in the kitchen, Pancake is in the living room. And on the left here is Pancake's lying by the fireplace. And you can see there's like a straight shot here. That's his pen. All the dining room chairs are stacked on top of the table, so we could make his pen there. But that's right next to the kitchen. So he can see straight into the kitchen and would run out through that opening into the kitchen to bark at my husband. So instead, to reduce this problem, I put back up our baby gate, which we had there before for other reasons. And you can see him quietly resting and observing the world from the safe side of the baby gate on the right side. Okay, so our two biggest problem scenarios when my husband's in the kitchen, cooking, cleaning, whatever, which was when Pancake was either in his kitchen pen or in the living room, have been adjusted. So now we've taken away those scenarios, those problem scenarios. The second one, or second category of problem areas was in the living room. If my husband stands up or moves around, and this is like when we're watching TV at night or something, what can we do to fix that? So what it looked like previously is on the left here. You see his pen behind him, but he was just out, loose. And this is partly because I was trying to encourage him to give him more opportunities to integrate with the family. And also, unless I sat next to the pen, he would bark. So we gave him a little more freedom, but it became problematic because then my husband felt like he couldn't stand up in his own home because every time he stood up, Pancake would have a fit. So instead, unless I was actively supervising and training him, this was, again, a situation where that living room corner pen came in handy. And there he is resting in there with some chewing on a bully stick or something. So now we've adjusted these three big opportunities for the aggressive behavior toward my husband to be reinforced by basically rearranging the house a little and our routine. And this provided a pretty significant and immediate decrease in the problem behavior. So that's really nice when you have irritated family members. Okay, so we just covered the opportunity piece of how to change the growling at husband problem. Now we're going to talk about motivation. And we decided that the motivation to aggress is basically because he's scared of my husband, and it makes growling and barking makes him, according to in Pancake's mind, makes him go away. So how can we change his motivation to make my husband go away? There are a few options, but the one I'm going to cover today is depicted by this little doxy who's watching someone eat snacks on the couch. One way to decrease Pancake's motivation to make my husband go away, to make him basically feel better, is to pair him with reinforcement, which means making sure that he predicts good stuff. Now, this isn't as simple as it sounds always. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you just say, oh, just have husband throw treats, and that's all good. But a lot of times, that's not enough. Or at least you need something that's a little more detailed than that. What we're going to do with Barrett is look at some different levels of difficulty that we used with Pancake, because just throwing treats initially, he was just too scared a lot of the time. Now I'm going to show you a video of how we did that. And like I said, we tried initially with Pancake in the kitchen pen to just have my husband throw treats every time he went by. But there are a couple problems with that. One is that it was too scary, really, for Pancake to be in that close of a proximity to my husband moving around. So he wouldn't even eat all the time, at least not for a while. The other thing is that my husband passed by there so often that I was becoming a real nag trying to get him to throw treats every time. It was just too much of a hassle. So let's look at Pancake's progress. Okay, so here is the kitchen pen that I mentioned that he was in originally. And for a lot of dogs, this is enough, or this is a fine place to start. You can just barely see Barrett at the top of the frame. He walked over, tossed some treats in. Now you see that you can't see Pancake, because as soon as my husband walks over to the pen, Pancake hides. So he tosses some treats, he moves away, and then you'll see Pancake come out to get them, which was good, but it was a little too scary for him, and we weren't making good progress. So we stopped using that kitchen pen, as I showed you, and made the other pen. Here you can see in the evening doing some training, and this is a big piece of the puzzle for a lot of dogs that are scared of men in the home, is a guy standing up and moving around. It doesn't have to be a man, but for some reason it often is. Someone, or anyone who's tall, really. Someone who's standing up and moving around is scarier, usually, to a dog who's a little bit fearful than someone sitting. So here my husband is sitting down, and we've done this now a few times, and you can see that Pancake is wagging his tail and anticipating good stuff is going to happen. And so for this, I have supplied a little thing of treats on the TV tray next to my husband, and he is going to be tossing good stuff to Pancake. And so that has progressed now to having him, sometimes at least, in certain contexts, having Pancake be following my husband and being ready to, basically working him for treats when he's standing up. Now, standing up with his back to him like this was like the first domino to fall, so to speak, the first way that Pancake has been able to tolerate my husband standing. If he turned to face him and moved toward him, it would be a little bit scarier. So here's my husband caught red-handed giving tater tots to the dogs. And here's another example. He's come in, he's wagging his tail and getting some goodies. Okay. So that was one piece of changing motivation. So if you have a dog who's scared of somebody in the house, pair them with good stuff, which means, they're kind of Santa Claus. But sometimes you might have to break it down a little bit for the dog. So for Pancake, we needed to first just have my husband sitting. And then if he were going to stand up, that's when I would first get Pancake to go over to his pen. And that's where he would stay most of the time, because you don't want anyone in your house to have to constantly ask permission to stand up. That's not really sustainable. Plus, you'd like them to help you with your training, right? So we're training now. Everyone knows what's going on. Okay, that's great. We're done training. Dog is going to go back to his pen instead of being where he otherwise will be too close to the scary person when they stand up and start barking. Another piece of this, and I'll add it on next week. I didn't want to make this too long today. It was already a lot talking about rearranging the house, decreasing opportunities to aggress, and pairing the scary person with reinforcement. Next week, we'll talk a little bit about skill building, which is what am I reinforcing Pancake for doing around my husband? So this isn't just husband, predicts treats, although he may well be reinforcing various behaviors. Like you saw there, Pancake was lying on the bed. We like that. Or just approaching him and wagging his tail. That's great. But he's not deliberately selecting behaviors to reinforce. Whereas when I'm working with Pancake and see him, he's noticing my husband, say, walking around or doing something that is currently kind of tough for him to handle. And normally he might get up and chase him and bark. I'm rewarding other behaviors, building other behaviors. So we'll take a little look at that next week. But like I said, it was kind of a lot for one session. Again, as a reminder, if you're watching this as a recording in the Facebook group, you can post a question under it and I will see it and respond. If you're watching it as a recording on the blog, you can email us at admin@dogkindtraining.com. Or I think you can comment under the blog too, and we'll get notification about that.